Courage is in all of those, but it's not limited to just those big and heroic acts. I can often miss those moments of courage in my own life such that I can look myself in the face. I can say words like, I am a courageous man, and yet not even believe it. Well, the topic today is courage, and there's a lot more of that to come. So let's go. This is the show dedicated to raising up the next generation of men of faith and character. My name is Mark Stanifer. Welcome to the Next Man Up,
part of the NRT Podcast Network.
Well, hey guys, welcome back once again to the Next Man Up podcast. So good as always to have you along with us for another episode today. You know this, my name is Mark, and you are part of the community that is changing the world one man at a time as we raise boys to become healthy and godly men. Everyone benefits. Thank you for being part of this community and joining us once again today. I'm flying solo today for another one of Mark's musings, and the topic that I want to get into today is one that I think that is one, super essential for manhood, two, one that's misunderstood, and three, one that I have really wrestled with in my own life. And of course, the topic that I'm talking about, or the manhood quality that I'm talking about today, is courage. I think of all of the many different qualities that we want to instill in our boys and raise up and call out in them as they transition from boy to man. Courage is at the top of the list. In fact, in our home, as we've distilled what it means to be a man down into four key qualities and visually represented that through a family crest, courage is one of the four. And as I've already said, one that I believe is essential to being a man. However, I also think it is misunderstood. And here's what I mean by that. We look at the extreme athletes. We look at those that have done great and heroic things. We look at those that have embraced huge adventure and taken big risks and think, wow, they must have a lot of courage. Or we misunderstand their actions as they are fearless. They have no fear. And I think really, while it's true that it takes significant courage to do the extreme sports or to take the big risk, to go all in, push your chips all in on the cards that you are holding, it is not true that those acts are done fearlessly, nor is it true that those are the only representation of what it means to be courageous. In fact, I think probably the acts that represent courage are more or better demonstrated in the smaller things, the things that we do that maybe nobody sees, or the effort to win that internal battle, or the little things that don't get media attention or don't get splashed across the headlines or make the Olympic sports or the X Games. I'm talking about what courage really means, not what we've come to believe it means. In fact, let me give you the dictionary definition of what courage means. It's the ability to do something that frightens one, or a subset of that is strength in the face of pain or grief. Now, this pain or grief or this fear that requires courage to embrace or to walk through, that doesn't necessarily have to be a self-inflicted pain or grief or fear as you're facing the ski jump, or you're strapping into the race car to run 400 laps around a track. No, those efforts to demonstrate strength in the face of pain or grief are about showing up every day and experiencing life as we know it in our world, or the ability to move past the thing that is creating the fear in you is in itself an act of courage. When my boys were younger, actually when my sons, it's probably better for me to call them sons now because they've both graduated into manhood. When they were younger, one of the things that we did to reinforce this idea of courage was a high ropes course. Now, I've mentioned before in the podcast, and I'll mention again, fear has had a long grip on my life. And some of it has been irrational fear, and some of it has just been giving in to fear. But one of the things that I've always struggled with is a fear of heights. And of course, a high ropes course does in fact involve heights. Now, I knew we were going to do this course for a couple of months leading up to it. My boys at the time did not know. It was a surprise adventure for them. But I remember anticipating a specific element of this course. And it was a 20-foot high pole with about a 12-inch surface on the top. Picture a telephone pole. You climb up to with no handles, no railing, really just handholds to scale this pole. And you position yourself on the top of this pole as best you can, and then you leap off to try to reach a bar to grab onto and then sort of swing yourself down. Now, I'm harnessed in. There's very little risk of me being injured. There's almost zero risk of death. I've got a helmet on. I've got the safety harness. I've got my brother down below who I trust that is on the belay, basically is my safety net. And yet, I'm staring at this pole thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I had to embrace this idea of courage in the moment to move past the fear, not pretend that I wasn't afraid, but simply acknowledge that fear wasn't going to call the shots in this moment, to muster the courage to scale the pole, leap off, and in essence, conquer the element. As I'm standing at the bottom of the pole, I'm asking myself once again, what in the world was I thinking? Now, I know this is an example of maybe more of an extreme event, a risk situation that I put myself into. But for me, and then subsequently for both of my boys, it was a very real and palpable sensation of what it means to demonstrate courage in the moment, to be able to look your fear in the face and say, I acknowledge you. I recognize you are there. I know that you are trying to keep me safe in this moment, but I'm going to move you aside and move on to do the thing at hand. For me, courage is often this thing that I look at that other guys have because they're able to take the big risks or they're able to do the big things. And I've missed the role that courage has played in my own life to make the big moves in my life when it comes to career or when it comes to listening to God's voice and leaning into what He is inviting me to do. When it comes to establishing values, the things that are important to me, and living according to them and sticking to them. I can often miss those moments of courage in my own life such that I can look myself in the face. I can say words like, I am a courageous man, and yet not even believe it. This is why courage for me, and I believe courage for each of us, is so important. It's important to understand that in order to embrace the men that God is calling us to be, it requires acknowledging that we have this fear, setting the fear aside and moving past it, and doing the thing that frightens us, or embracing that strength in the face of something painful, or in the face of some challenge or some grief. Let me give you a few examples of what I'm talking about. Courage is choosing to do less when everyone is clamoring for more. Courage is staying moored to truth, even when it's not popular or it's not profitable. Courage is working to be the best dad you can be. Courage is listening to those you disagree with rather than canceling them. It's fighting for the relationships in life that matter most. It's leaning into the challenge rather than avoiding it. Courage is striving to be a healthy and godly man and teaching your boy how to be one too. These are just a handful of examples that I think of when I think of courage. Maybe a better and more approachable, a more accessible way to define courage rather than the extreme and the huge and the heroic per se. Again, courage is in all of those, but it's not limited to just those big and heroic acts. It's in the way we live each and every day according to those things that are important, valuing the relationships that matter most, and, like I said, striving to be a healthy and godly man yourself and teaching your boy how to be one too. So here is the question for you. Given your past, given your story, given your situation, your experiences, where you are right now, what is courage for you today? What could taking a courageous act today look like for you? When you process that question, what comes to mind? What hard thing that you've been avoiding comes to mind? What difficult conversation that you need to have, that you're anticipating to have, comes to mind? What relationship that needs some work and some repair comes to mind? What inner battle or struggle comes to mind? What mental strength and resiliency is needed in the moment that you are facing? What does courage look like for you today? And then here's the challenge. When you have that answer, go forth and do it. All right, guys. Well, there are my thoughts on courage. If you've got any thoughts, feedback, maybe even some stories from your own life about how courage showed up and helped you in the moment, I would love to hear from you and interact with you in that way. You can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. You can find us on Facebook at NMU Journey is where we live there. We'd love to hear from you. All right, guys. Thanks again for being with us. I wish you all the best in this courageous life as a healthy and godly man that you are living, and as a father that's raising up the next generation of healthy and godly men. Same bat time, same bat channel next week. Until then, adios. Hey listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. We would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.